we can wait for some five more minutes for people to join.
Yeah, almost 4 o'clock.
Yeah, it is 4 o'clock India IST.
Lakshmi, could you please check it is live stream or not?
Yeah, messages come. It is being live streamed.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is live.
Okay, just 1 more minute. So, can you see the share screen also?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it is visible.
Okay, so I think everything is perfect now, and I also start the recording itself. Okay.
Mohan, we can wait for
Sir.
another 4 minutes. We start at
Yes, sir.
16:05.
Sure, sir.
Professor Das,
Yeah.
have Mr. Karyasam joined?
Which one?
Sunil Karyasam from Sri Lanka?
Oh, yeah. He said that he will definitely try to join, provided there is no technical problem on his side.
Okay, right.
We tried to get in Dr. Basnaike, you know Basnaike, right? Senaka Basnaike.
Yes,
from
he will.
Thailand, but he said that in the last moment, we had very less time, so he expressed inability to join. He had some other
Yeah,
engagement.
he is the best man from Sri Lanka for climate change.
Yeah, exactly. So he is a climate change expert working at the ADPC, Thailand.
That's very even Saturdays, I think he's having some programs there.
Right. He was engaged in something else, he said.
Yeah, right.
Is it live streaming already?
Yes, sir. It is live streaming and recording is also just paused. But when I start, I can start the recording itself.
It's only 3 minutes past 4, is it? We can wait for 2 more minutes.
So, should we start after 2 minutes, sir?
Yeah, maybe at 5 minutes past 4 o'clock we can start. 4, 5?
Yes. Yeah.
You see, there are about 32 people already. And since I have invited all the student members as well as the live members, so if everybody joins, although we don't expect that, but this will be more than 600 people. If everybody attends, out of 600, only 32 or 33 are here. So maybe some more will join in between.
Few people might join YouTube because we have shared YouTube link. We have not shared the Zoom link to general people.
We'll try to, let's see. Some might join there also.
Is the YouTube number is coming anywhere on the?
Well, I'm able to open the link. Yes, I'm able to open the YouTube link.
Yeah, it's showing still 3 or 4 people watching. So
Okay.
let's see.
Yeah. Two watching it says.
Yeah.
on screen.
Yes, sir. It's showing
So,
3 or 4 people are
So
watching now.
one is myself and another one can be yourself out of the 2-3 people on YouTube.
Professor Das, while waiting for some more people to join our program, I'd like to
Yes.
thank you and all Shama team for accepting some of my undergraduate students as a member, and I can see that few of them have joined today as well. So I'm really appreciate the acceptance to the
Nice.
very young students and young, career professionals,
Correct.
early career
Yeah.
professionals. So thank you for
Yeah.
thank you to your team,
It's always
for that
right.
initiation.
It's always a pleasure, and thank you, Dr. Dheeraj, for encouraging the students to join because we had very less students, members, especially from Nepal. There were very less. Highest is from Bangladesh, followed by India, and then very little from Nepal. So please do encourage more students to join. Both
Yeah,
graduate,
definitely. I will share more, and then
yes.
hopefully they will also join. But I can see a couple of students over here now. So I'm very
Yeah,
glad that they could join and experience, such kind of
yeah,
discussions and interactions.
correct.
I hope, they will be benefited from the interaction that we will have.
Right, right. Yeah, in fact, this is very useful seminar for the students, particularly.
Yes.
They will get benefited a lot. And I can see also some of them, I remember the name, Susa Manandar, I think she joined recently.
Yes. Yeah. And Bharat Tungana. Yeah.
Tungana.
Hmm.
So it's good. Welcome, most welcome. Dr. Madan Sigdel, also you're welcome. I can see your name.
Yes, he's also
Sir, I
here.
think
Yeah,
sir,
good
I
evening,
think we can
everyone.
start, right?
Good evening.
Good evening, good evening. Yeah. So we should start. We can start.
And Lakshmiji, you start first or me?
Yeah, okay, I can start, Mohan. Yeah. Can
Just
I
a minute.
start?
Okay. Fine.
Yeah. Good afternoon to one and all present here, and I welcome you all to the webinar on climate change as an unconventional security threat. So, on behalf of South Asian Meteorological Association, so I formally welcome today's speaker, Dr. S.N. Mishra, who is going to talk on the topic of climate change and unconventional security threat. Also, I welcome the panel experts, Professor Tauhida Rashid, Dr. Dheeraj Pradhangana, and Mr. Sunil Karayavasam. So, along with the panel experts, I also welcome the President of SAMA, Professor AVM Ajit Tyagi, Secretary Professor Someshwar Das, and also I welcome all the life members of SAMA, student members of SAMA, and other scientists and other participants of today's webinar. I welcome you all for today's webinar. So as part of the agenda, so I request Professor AVM Ajit Tyagi sir, President SAMA, to deliver the welcome address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Lakshmi, and I join you in welcoming all our participants in today's very important webinar on a topic which is now in the forefront of all scientific and I think strategic issues which is being discussed in various forums, and its impact is already being felt. It's all encompassing, affecting many sectors, though the culprit for this are the developed countries, but its impact is going to be felt acutely in the developing countries of global south. Being one of the leading country of the global south, it is very important for India to take a lead in making people aware of these risks and also to take action for the adaptation and mitigation. And I'm happy that the governments in South Asia are taking note of it. Now, we have been used to the conventional strategic issues related to warfare and the conflicts which take place, but the threats which are now seeping through this climate change and various economic, social, and strategic sectors is really alarming, and we need to take note because they have got long-term implications. Unlike wars and all that, which finish within a year or two, and then, but then this is going to be a long period if we don't act and take necessary actions. Now, the sectors which are impacted, you have to just identify any sector, and I'm sure its impact is being felt. Primarily, it's mostly talked about is agriculture, water, health, energy. These are the primary sectors which have got issues, but underlying these are lot many issues where the daily lives of the people are going to be affected because of the extreme event, maybe the increasing temperatures where productivity will go down, or there are disaster related extreme weather disasters like what is happening in the Himalayan region now, leading to downstream flooding. So all these are again increasing frequency of extreme weather events, which is becoming normal because of climate change. And the climate change refugees, which are going to be a big, I think, cause for many conflicts which will arise because of the rising sea level from the coastal areas or changes in the Arctic. And all these things have to be taken note of it, and I'm sure we have got very expert who is going to give his presentation, Dr. S.N. Mishra, who is honorary professor with the Delhi University, and he has been bringing out in forums in the country the threats of the climate change. And I'm happy that we have participants from senior veterans of the field to the young students who are attending this part, and they have to really work on science of climate change and its impact, which is taking place in various sectors. So with this welcome address, I once again thank our speaker, Dr. S.N. Mishra, for having agreed to deliver this talk on short notice, and also our experts who are going to give their remarks, concluding remarks, and also other colleagues, our senior colleagues like Professor Bhaskar Rao, I can see Dr. Karmakar was there, and many other colleagues who are there. Professor Arif Hassan is here, and I can see, of course, Abhay Singha Sahib and many others. So welcome, and Dr. R.V. Sharma is there, Dr. Raviman is there. So thank you so much on a weekend, in the afternoon, joining this important bargain. And this is going to be available on YouTube, and we find that such talks are being followed on YouTube for a long time to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman, Professor Air Vice Marshal Dr. Ajit Tyagi sir, for setting the tone of this webinar. Now let's move forward with the introduction to our distinguished speaker, Dr. S.N. Mishra. I would like to invite Dr. Poulomi Chakraborty, a member of the SAMA Expert ECT, Executive Coordination Team, on and DST in a spare fellow, to introduce our honorable speaker. Poulomi Chakraborty, please.
Thank you, Dr. Das, for the introduction. Very good afternoon to all of you, our Honorable President of SAMA, the ECT members, Executive Committee members, and everyone present. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. S.N. Mishra to this prestigious institution's lecture that is happening today. And I cannot share my screen actually. Can that be fixed?
Okay, I just checked. Just a minute.
Yeah, please. Yes, thank you. So I'll quickly.
Yeah, now you can do it. Yeah, please.
I'll quickly share my screen. Give me a second. I hope my screen is visible to everyone.
Yes, it is perfect.
So it is my pleasure to welcome Dr. S.N. Mishra, who is an honorary professor at the Terry School of Advanced Studies for Climate Change Mitigation and Adaptation. And with few words, I would like to introduce him today to our session. And Dr. Mishra is a distinguished Indian Air Force veteran, possesses a remarkable track record of over 35 years in climate sciences, climate change, and sustainability, with expertise in climate risk analysis, extreme weather event forecasting, and mitigation and adaptation. He has consistently provided strategic and sustainable solutions to address challenges arising from climate crisis. Having held significant positions, including the former Director of Climate Sciences and Weather, Dr. Mishra has made notable contribution to the field, both in India and Sudan. His leadership as a lead member for the project on the impacts of climate change on armed forces as the unconventional national security threat at the College of Defense Management, in collaboration with the Deputy National Security Advisor, Government of India, highlights his commitment to addressing critical national concerns. His involvement in multiple projects of national importance, such as partnering with esteemed institutions like Department of Science and Technology, India Meteorological Department, Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology, to study extreme weather events and climate change across India, including regions like Ladakh and Tibetan Autonomous Region, demonstrates his unwavering dedication to meteorology. He has been awarded several accolades throughout his career, and his appointment as a subject matter expert meteorology by the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, Ministry of Civil Aviation, Government of India, reflects his profound knowledge and expertise in the field. Acknowledged for his exceptional service, he has received multiple awards, including 2 awards from the Air Officer Commander-in-Chief. Currently, he is serving as an honorary professor, as I already explained earlier, at the Terry School of Advanced Studies for Climate Change Mitigation and Adaptation. And Dr. Mishra continues to inspire and educate future generations through his efforts. He has been an alumnus of College of Defense Management and Bhartiyar University. With these few words, I would like to again welcome Dr. S.N. Mishra for the talk today.
Thank you, Dr. Poulomi Chakraborty, for the introduction. Now it is time for Dr. S.N. Mishra to deliver his talk on climate change as an unconventional security threat. Let's eagerly listen to his valuable presentation. Sir, you're welcome.
Yeah, first of all, let me thank Professor Tyagi and Dr. Someshwar Das for giving me a chance to pursue my passion on climate change with this such a esteemed forum. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. In next 1 hour, I'll take you through the climate change in a different perspective altogether as to how we look at climate change today. Okay, I'll can I not and thank you very much for such a wonderful introduction. And have you given me the access to share my screen? Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. So without much delay, I'll basically go on the subject which I have been assigned, the climate change as an unconventional national security threat. But before moving to the subject, why so much of talk of climate change today? We want to put this across the context setting that what is the risk landscape across the world today, across the planet, what people are worried about. So see, everything originates from what we see is the human endeavor, and human endeavor in the form of business, which we do all across. And it is these business leaders, World Economic Forum has conducted the survey of 1,000 top leaders. Every time we have this every year during January, February, we have World Economic Forum conference. So they have carried out a World Economic Forum Global Risk Perception Survey in 2020, 2021, 22, 23. Every year they do this survey, and they release from world's biggest and the mighty 1,000 leaders. And finally, they ask them questions as to what do you see in next 10 years? What is going to be the biggest threat to the world in terms of economy or in terms of livelihood? So when we look at this risk landscape, continuously, if you have a look at this survey, in 2021, extreme weather events were considered as the first risk. which the world is facing. And second is the climate action failure. You can see this. And third is human environmental damage and biodiversity loss. And thereafter, digital power consumption, as we are moving in a digital world, and digital inequality. These are the other risks which have been which have come. But if you see right from 2012 to 2020, after 2017, extreme weather events and climate action failure has been continuously threat, which was seen for the next decade. So this is the global risk ranked by severity over the short and long term. So when we look at for next 10 years, 2023, this survey was conducted in January 2023, and just before the World Economic Forum meeting. Again, failure to mitigate climate change emerged as one of the top risks for next decade. Failure of climate change adaptation was the next, and nature disaster and natural disasters and extreme weather events, biodiversity loss and ecosystem collapse. These are all part of the climate change actually. So this is the risk. So the world as a whole is in agreement that in next decade, the major risk is through the climate change. We may do whatever. In between, there has been pandemic, which has again been a risk which world never anticipated. But climate change is considered close to that only. That this will remain threat if the mitigation and adaptations have not been taken properly. So when you're looking this wonderful figure, center is the climate action failure, and all green when you see the biodiversity loss, it's a system approach. Extreme weather events are related to this natural disaster, human-made environmental disasters, and from climate action failure, if you look towards less water crisis, food crisis, or your involuntary migration, everything is linked with basically climate action failures. So this is what the problem which we are going to face. So this is precisely the risk landscape which is available and which is being perceived by the world as a whole. So why there's so much of hue and cry for this global warming? If you look at the global average temperature, I hope the full screen is visible.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So if you see this, from year, we can see from 0 to 2000 years, the temperature has been almost, global warming has been, global average temperature has remained more or less constant throughout. And there have been certain times when there has been sub-glacial periods where temperature has lowered. There was a medieval warm period, little ice age, which you can see. But what you can see is that the post World War II, the industrial revolution which has taken place, thereafter there is a sudden rise in the temperature. And this sudden rise in temperature, what you see is precisely from 1971 to 2000. There is sudden spike of temperature, which you can see here. And this is what is creating a problem, that there is something amiss which is creating this kind of a warming in the environment. So when this has been further iterated from say 100 years, so what is very significantly is coming out that if you see last decade of 2010 to 2020, most of the warmest years they have come in last decade. So that means the temperature which was consistent throughout till around 1970, thereafter it has started increasing, but gradually if you look at the last decade, the temperature has slightly and significantly shooting. And since 2020, if you look at 2021, 2022, the temperature is continuously rising. Every year is beating another year. And with this year, El Nino, coupled with El Nino, it is expected that the temperature will shoot 1.5 degrees Celsius from the normal. This year, in this decade, in this next 4 or 5 years itself, maybe thereafter it can come down, because El Nino is the another one which is exacerbating the entire global warming. So this is the global mean temperature, which today we are around 1.2 to 1.3 degrees Celsius above normal. This is just provisional state of climate as reported in 2002. So this is a beautiful kind of a word cloud. Whatever you see in this is a problem associated with global warming and climate change. So anything which you think of, death of forest, rising sea levels, air pollution, everything linked with climate change. And so why this whole hull about climate change is basically, it is the enhanced greenhouse effect which is working, because with the fossil fuel, the carbon which was sequestered properly and was kept under the earth, this has been removed, and whole lot of carbon has been repumped in the form of carbon dioxide, greenhouse gases into the environment in last around 50 years, 60 years or so. And that is how the CO2 concentration, the greenhouse gases like CO2, methane, and nitrous oxide, they basically are the one which are holding back the terrestrial radiation going back into the space, and thus creating the global warming. Now, this is the CO2 concentration, a very interesting slide. In last roughly, if you like 2 lakh years, 10 lakh years, almost 1 lakh year, the CO2 concentration has been close to around 270 parts per million. But if you start looking after around 1950 level, suddenly the carbon dioxide has started increasing, and on 3rd June 2022, it has been highest CO2 of 421 parts per million, which has been recorded at the NOAA's Mauna Loa lab. And 270 is considered normal, and whatever more than that parts per million are considered extra, which are creating the kind of global warming or the change in the normal temperature. Now, it will be worth noting here that 1 part per million increase in the carbon dioxide equivalent to 2.13 gigatons of CO2 in the environment. So that means if we are increasing, if next year you have 422 parts per million, that means 2.13 gigatons of greenhouse gases has been additionally emitted into the environment. So this is a very interesting how the CO2 emission total, if we look the total landscape of the entire emission which is being emitted in the world. So this is a beautiful picture, and what you see, the biggest pie, this first color, the orange color kind of a thing, this is 29%. This is the share of China, which is producing emissions into the environment. But if you look at total number, it is emitting close to around 12,000 million tons of per year CO2 in the environment. Next is United States, which is close to emitting. If you look at this United States, this is the pie of United States, 4,500 million tons of CO2 per year. And next is India, which is close to 2,500 million tons per year CO2 emitting in the environment. Rest all countries are very less. So that is how we are called the world's biggest third polluter in the world, India. But this is one picture. If we start doing per capita, now we have a caveat there that this is what we have reached now. But historically, all developed countries are the polluter. The pile of CO2 emissions which is already there in the environment, that is the doing of all the developed world. But when we go to per capita emission, India ranked 3rd. We are just producing close to 2.4 tons of per capita per person emission in the environment. Whereas if you look, the world average is 6.3. EU is 7.2 tons, Brazil 7.5, and United States close to 14 tons. This is the total per capita emission there. So that means what? That India is still emitting around 1/3 of the world's average emissions. So that means our energy requirements are still huge. We are still a very low consuming country. And that is what the fight is always on when they talk about it. And that is where India has been fighting for climate change as a leading voice for whole global South, that we must be treated with this is a global common, but responsibility has to be differentiated based on how much emission who has already pumped into the environment. If you look at the Indian sector, how Indian sector is performing, then how Indian sector is performing. This is the continuously Indian sector is emitting there, but highest emission is from energy sector, around 2129 million tons. And then we have 226 from our industrial process, cement, steel production, everything. Then waste is around producing 75, and agriculture is 407. Now this is very interesting. Why agriculture is producing so much? Because greenhouse gas emission, methane is again considered to be one of the important gas for greenhouse gas emission. And India and actually entire Southeast Asia, they are basically, rice eating people, and paddy produces a lot of methane. Whereas all energy is basically fossil fuel, your green, your agriculture and livestock are basically producing methane. So this is methane. And LULUCF, what we call is land use and change forest. This is 308. This is works as a sink. So India net producing is 2529 million tons as of now, and which is growing gradually. The whole world as a whole is producing close to 40 gigatons of, and we are just around producing 2.5 gigatons of the total out of 40 gigatons. Now, when we look at the whole greenhouse gases, then if you look at CO2, what we talk about CO2, but CO2 is relatively very harmless gas when considered with other one. These few gases have been just found around 10 years back. Carbon dioxide, its atmospheric lifetime, or we call it resident years, is around 50 to 200. Global warming potential is 1. And primary current sources, fossil fuel, land use, cement. Methane is 12 plus minus 3 years. Global warming potential is 21. Fossil fuel use, agriculture, waste. These are basically nitrous oxide, mostly agriculture, anthropogenic with the fertilizers and all. But what is important is hydrofluorocarbons, perfluorocarbons, and sulfur hexafluoride. These are the gases which have resident time from 1.5 to 209 years. Few gases have resident time from 2006 years to 50,000 years. Perfluorocarbons, and sulfur hexafluoride 3002 years. Look at the global warming potential of these gases, but just see what is their source. Their source is primary aluminum production, semiconductor manufacturing, use in electric power transmission, magnesium in semiconductor industry. So there has to be a trade-off. Nobody talks about this, because if you start mitigating these gases, if you start sequestering these gases, or you start stop producing these gases, probably your growth and development will come to a halt, because your today all growth and development depends upon your semiconductors. So these industry, your aluminum, your electric power transmission. So that is how there's nobody talks about it, but then that's the fact. So what had happened? The talk of climate change has been since beginning, but India's position has been that we must work on a common but differentiated responsibilities. But in 2014, if remember 2015, there was a Paris Agreement, which was the landmark agreement, was adopted by 196 parties. If those who are following, they can remember that time, that this agreement was to be failed, but Prime Minister Modi then in 2015, he flew to Paris to seal this deal. And that is the first time when India came out of common but differentiated responsibility. And they said, no, we will also get into the normal mode of mitigating. climate change. So this particular Paris Agreement is so important that it has decided that its goal is to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius, preferably to 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial levels. Global peaking of greenhouse gas emissions as soon as possible, but achieve a climate neutral world by 2050, means net zero, net neutral world, where there won't be any additional greenhouse gases will be injected into the environment. The Paris Agreement is first binding agreement to all nations to undertake ambitious efforts to combat climate change and adapt to its effect. And this was the first agreement which was made. Based on this, most of the discussions and most of the subsequent actions which were taken based on the Paris Agreement. In the same Paris Agreement, this conference has proposed 17 sustainable development goals. These development goals are very important, that the entire world is working towards these sustainable development goals. And there was one decade of action which was called that by 2030, we have to achieve these sustainable development goals, where we will not have poverty across the world. There is zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean and safe water, affordable and clean energy, and everything. And 13 was the climate action. This has also come, life below water, life. So all countries had to work. They had to decide their nationally determined contributions, how they are going to change the trajectory of greenhouse gas emissions, and they will work on the various goals. During this time only, India has entered into a national solar alliance, and they said that they will achieve close to 175 gigawatt of renewable energy by 2030. The whole world laughed at that point of time, but India has today, 9 years before, they have almost completed their 175 gigawatt of renewable energy, out of which around 75 gigawatt is solar energy itself. When we entered into this agreement, the solar energy power was being sold at 17 rupees per unit. Today, it is at 2 rupees 44 paisa per unit. So that's the kind of development which has happened. Now, why this 1.5 degrees Celsius? Everybody talks about 1.5 degrees Celsius is so sacrosanct. Because if you look at what will happen if you have 1.5 degrees Celsius, so you can focus extreme right, how this will impact on food, your 2 months average drought, 41 more burn area wildfire, that whatever will happen in 1.5 degrees Celsius, coral reefs would decline by 70 to 90% in 1.5 also. But the moment you go to 2 degrees Celsius, the intensity of these all disasters, it will keep increasing. When you go to 3, just see marine ecosystem may collapse almost. And when you go to 4 degrees Celsius, which is considered the extreme, which will talk RCP scenario 8.5, half of all plant and animal species face local extinction. So when the climate change is already happening, even if we make the world net neutral today, it will take another 30 years, because the kind of greenhouse gas emissions which have been emitted into the environment, the sink will take its own time, and by the time they reduce to 270 parts per million, it will take another 30 to 40 years. So that means the extreme weather events and everything will continue even if we become net neutral by today. So that is why if temperature reaches 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius, the changes which will happen, they will be irreversible. If your plant, your coral reefs, they have gone, they will not regenerate. But there is a chance that we will be able to adapt to 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius, but beyond which, if we go, the entire processes in the nature will be irreversible and planet will not be livable anymore. So that's the 1.5 degrees Celsius. So while this is happening, the 6th IPCC report, which was called A Code Red for Humanity, came in August 2021, and which has said that frequent rainfall and these are all evidence-based reports. Prolonged droughts and heat waves, they are the norms. Change in rainfall patterns, monsoon variability, rise in sea level and coastal flooding, frequent and intense extreme weather events, melting of glaciers, urban heat islands, heavy rainfall in cities leading to flash floods. These were for all this sixth IPCC. This is International Panel on Climate Change report they have given, and thereafter we had COP26, and that time the United Nations secretary said it is end game for humans. Our planet has now entered into a phase that could lead to a sixth mass extinction event. IPCC co-chair has said at that point of time. So, and actually this is a existential crisis today, climate change, as we see how it is panning out. So climate change has two risks. One is physical risk, one is acute risk. Acute is what we see happening every day: heat waves, floods, wildfires, and storms. And there is a chronic, what we see, shift in climatic patterns, rising sea levels, increasing mean temperatures, that they will gradually happen. You will not come to know, but gradually you'll find that the areas, the seas are claiming additional areas, your boundaries, and a lot of migration is taking place. And another way is transition risk, climate change. So transition risk we will not talk about, because transition risk is basically how the world transit to a better world and what mitigation strategies they will take, but we will talk about physical risks. So this is the global mean sea level temperature. Sorry, global mean sea level rise. Earlier it was rising at the rate of 2.1 mm per year. Now it is rising at the rate of 4.4 mm per year. And the rise towards the Bay of Bengal is higher than the Arabian Sea in terms of rate. It will be very interesting to know that those people who are from Sundarban area, their houses got buried twice into the sea and they have moved up. And it is very threatening. It is happening. So what will be the impact on India and around? When we were looking at India itself, 12 coastal Indian cities, including some metros and major ports, will get submerged by 2100 if global warming continues, according to NASA's analysis of a report by IPCC. So all these stations, all these areas which we have listed, they may go partly. Pardon? Okay. Now look at this. This is the picture. You may find that this link of Mumbai may go underwater. You may say the Marine Drive may go underwater after by 2050. So I keep telling people when I talk to them, please visit if you have not visited, because the way climate change is happening, soon you will see these places disappearing. And whole they will not go, but a number of areas, 25 to 90 kilometers, area they will claim. And it is not only that they will, the seas will claim this area, but your fresh aquifers, your intrusion of salt water into your territory, this will spoil your agriculture. People will have to migrate from that area. Your all infrastructures are at huge risk. So with this report, then came the Glasgow COP26. Now, these COP26, the Conference of Parties are every year, they are conducted, and all world leaders or all representatives of the world, they get together, they take the stock of what has happened previously and what new commitments they can make. So in COP26 this year, when our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi had gone, he has given Panchamrit. This was his, so he had made 5 pledges that India will increase its non-fossil fuel energy capacity to 500 gigawatt by 2030. India's total energy consumption as of date, including fossil fuel based and non-fossil fuel based, is close to 460 gigawatt as of now. But putting a rate of around 12% per year, we feel that in India's energy requirement will be close to 1000 gigawatts. So 500 gigawatt we will have by 2030 from the non-fossil fuel sources. India will fulfill its 50% energy requirements through renewable energy by 2030. India is already almost 43% of its energy requirement is being fulfilled through non and clean energy sources. India will reduce the 1 billion ton of total projected carbon emissions between now and 2030. How it will reduce? Through enhanced forestry. India will reduce its economy's carbon intensity to less than 45% by 2030 because India wants to most intense carbon intense processes they want to turn during daytime or with the renewable energy so that they can reduce their intensity. India will achieve the target of net zero emissions by 2070. So this is one declaration which they have done, that we will become net neutral by 2070. Now India is the last to become net neutral by 2070. The other countries, they have given, developed country 2050, China has given 2060, but Global South had a problem because Global South is still, their energy needs are huge. They are still consuming 1/3, per capita energy consumption is, even if you take case of India, it is just 1/3 of the average energy consumption in the world. And the same NDCs have been updated. These are nationally determined contributions which are sent as a commitment and given to the IPCC. UNFCCC. Nationally determined contributions are voluntary commitments countries signatory to the Paris Agreement declares to lower GHG trajectory and submit to UNFCCC in order to limit us warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. So today, the entire talk which you see of carbon net neutrality, all companies are going carbon net zero. The oil to gas companies are changing into green energy companies because of this, because India has made a commitment, and either they will change into a less carbon intensive business or they will be out of business. So that is how the companies are changing. So you can see. Apart from that, what a wonderful another important focus on healthy and sustainable way of living based on tradition and values of conservation, moderation through a movement called lifestyle for environment. That this is called personal sustainability, that you nudge behavior to reduce your carbon footprints and your consumption. And long-term strategy for low carbon development to achieve net zero neutrality by 2070. So India intends to and very aggressively going in reducing its carbon total GHG inventory. So what is happening because of climate change? That we have extreme weather events, frequent and intense cyclones. We have seen prolonged heat waves, which we have seen, severe thunderstorms, heavy rainfall. See, climate change these events were earlier also, but what will happen? The climate change has accelerated to that level where these events will be more frequent, which were first, earlier they used to be in 1 in 50 years, they will start happening 1 in 10 years. And they will be more intense. Heavy rainfall, as we have seen, the type of change which is happening in monsoon also. If you see the analysis today, this is more intense rainfall in a less time period occurring at a place and creating flash floods, rather than it's a well-distributed rainfall. Cloudburst, floods and flash floods, glacial lake outburst floods, land and mudslides, droughts. Now, this we cannot forget. Now, every event can't be linked to the climate change. For there is a attribution science, so every event which happens, which considered to be abnormal, is put through attribution science, and if it is it can be attributable to climate change, it is considered that it is because of climate change. So this last year, in 2022, early March heat wave, which is known as early March heat wave, it started in India. It continued from India to Horn of Africa. From there, it has moved to Europe, Europe to US, and it came to China. And this was a devastating, actually, in March itself, we have temperatures close to 45, 46 degrees Celsius. And thereafter, these, the entire heat waves, they have moved in such a way that they have engulfed the entire Europe. Most of Europe is baking in heat waves. These were the headlines. Europe battles heat waves and wildfires. Portugal, Spain, France, Switzerland, Germany, Italy, UK during mid-July and later impacted US and China. London Breach temperature 40.2 degrees Celsius, historic. Raging forest fires across Europe, unprecedented. Death toll in Spain and Portugal crossed 1700, UK 840. The UK government triggered a national emergency, if somebody can recall this. And what they had to do is schools and train services got closed down in London. Wildfires are raging across Tinder dry countryside. Massive evacuation drives were undertaken to vacate vulnerable areas for fear of raising wildfires. Aviation services are hampered due to excessive heating. Their all runways got melted away. They did not have 2 days, 3 days continuously. Their flights were halted. Metro rail services have been asked to lower speed to avoid breakdowns. London Fire Brigade and hospitals had their busiest day on 18th and 20th July as temperatures soared to 40.2 degrees Celsius. Thousands of hectares of forest and hundreds of properties gutted, heading for collective suicide. This was the statement by UN Secretary General at that point of time. So these are the impacts of heat wave, how they get severe heat wave and drought in China thereafter. So, and this further moved into China. And China also had their huge shortage of water. Their all hydropower plants were stopped and their factories were shut, and that shutting their factory, the supply chain disruptions were seen right across the planet, because the all supply chains, they emanate from China right now. And so people were waiting for semiconductor, for everything for months together. And they had 15 to 16% reduction in crops due to drought. Factories were shut down due to non-availability of power as rivers dried up. But what impacts on India for that particular heat wave which had happened? That heat wave happened in the early March. So that time a statement was given by the our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, that we will provide food to the world post-pandemic. But Rabi crop, the main staple crop for India, which is likely to, which just gets harvested during April, and early March we had a heat wave. So we had a Rabi crop which has lost around 5% yield, 6 billion tons of loss in wheat production. India suns its ambitions to provide food to the world. Suddenly he has declared, and thereafter he has put export on wheat, ban on wheat export. And after that, rice also was, because there was no shortage of wheat, so rice was also put on export ban list. So climate change poses a serious challenge to an aspirational India at that point of time. Only one heat wave has probably put, is given such a jolt to the country. Sustained heating leads to increased energy demand. So this whole wheat, which was because of terminal stress heat, it crop suddenly got spoiled, especially in the parts of, and this heat was also in Pakistan and parts of northwestern parts of the country and central parts of the country, and which is primarily a wheat ball. And the energy demand also increased so much that we had to start again our few fossil fuel based power plants. So setback to net zero emissions also. Thereafter, we went into, so we are coming out from one extreme event to another. Pakistan flood September 2002, nobody can forget these floods. They were devastating floods in Pakistan thereafter. So the situation has become that you come out of one extreme heat conditions at one part of the world and you enter into the another part of the world. So when we look at the population exposure to flood and biological hazard in the current scenario, moderate RCP 4.5 and worst case scenario, RCP is the representative concentration pathways, where we consider 8.5 is that business as usual will continue, same kind of emissions will continue. See the vulnerability of Bangladesh. Bangladesh is very high vulnerability for its flood and biological hazards, followed by Nepal, Sri Lanka, India. So these are the countries which are highly vulnerable to floods and other biological hazard because of climate change. And this is the statistics from Escape Risk Resilience portal. And this is just a few days back, 3rd and 4th July. It's again happened to be the hottest days on Earth. we had recorded 17.18 degrees Celsius temperature on 4th of July, and that was further broken on 5th July. So these are the incidents which are happening one after another. So there is a problem. So if you look at the cost of extreme weather events, how much they are costing to the countries. In 2021, the India has incurred loss of 87 billion USD. When we look at Pakistan, close to 15 billion USD. And when we look at Bangladesh, it is 11 billion. If you look at Myanmar, it is 3.6 billion. And Sri Lanka, 1.7 billion USD. Nepal, 1.6 billion USD. Afghanistan, 1.1 billion USD. So this is the cost. And these are all hydrometeorological events, including the heat waves. This is the kind of damage which is happening. So if this is the kind of damage, we need to work to mitigate these risks. Now look at this. Top 3 disasters in Asia ranked according to, this is again risk and resilience. So what we see is Storm Gorky, Bangladesh. Total deaths 1,38,866 in 1991. And similarly, when we look at India, what we call it, the super cyclone, India had 9,843. Since then, the risk and the early warning and the improvement in forecasting is so much that to some extent that we could mitigate, that we could reduce, but still the destruction we are not able to reduce, because as the events are becoming more this thing, we need to make climate resilient infrastructure. We have to do climate proofing of infrastructure, which we need funds, and they are not available probably. So that's how the miseries to the people continues to remain. And what are other problems which the climate change is accelerating? So this is the map of aqueduct map. Water is stressed by country. You look at this water stress. All those areas are red. They are severely water stressed, like Pakistan, Afghanistan. India is also high stress. Whole of India is in high stress. Sri Lanka is in high stress too. Now, this is the state of the world. Almost 2/3 of world is in the high stress zone right now, water stress. And what we call stress, when your withdrawal is more than the your aquifers charging, and because as the resources are less and population is more, for less resources everybody is competing. You're using those resources, so that is how you become stressed. So this is India's projected water stress for 2030. All states which are considered to be progressive, they are contributing to the economy. You see, they are majorly water stressed, except few in the East Coast. But very interesting here, water stress. What is the the situation for India? It's a very interesting analysis. Water surplus country. We have 4% of world freshwater resource, and we are supporting 18% of world's population and 18% of livestock. This is the story of India, and we have only 4% of fresh water. India annually receives 4,000 billion cubic meter rainfall, whereas it needs only 1325 billion cubic meter. Its need is only this much. India receives more than 75% rainfall during southwest monsoon season. So this is another reason that majority of rainfall India is receiving within 4 months, so it is not able to hold, neither the soil moisture can hold it, nor the reservoirs can hold, because so much of rainfall is occurring in a so little time that everything gets run off. So we capture only 8% of annual rainfall water, lowest in the world. Biggest extractor of groundwater, including US, China. We extract groundwater maximum. When you put China and US together, India extract more than that. Meets more than 50% of clean water needs through extraction. So whatever is our water needs, most of it, 50% or more, we are meeting through extraction, groundwater extraction. And largest share of agriculture irrigation majority of it in agriculture, irrigation, and drinking water supply. But how the impact of climate change on water security, how a nation can be, and water is key to development. Any country, until unless you have water, you just see the development metrics of any country. If you have good, clean, affordable access water for all your needs, you can develop. That's how you're all, whatever civilizations they have developed along good water sources. Melting of glaciers, decrease in number of rainy days. This is what the change climate, increase in rainfall intensity, effect on groundwater quality, effect on groundwater recharge, coastal flooding, and saline intrusion. So these are all happening because of climate change, because your sea level is rising, your increase in rainfall intensity. Suddenly you will find that rainfall in one go, it will happen so much that you can't hold it, rather than flood and create more distress in the population. And what is the consequence of water stress? Depletion of reliable water resources, wetland degradation, intensification of water cycle, serious social and economic issues, always vulnerable groups are most impacted. Millions of poor are struggling due to low adaptive capacity, health, hygiene, and sanitation severely impacted. Cause for conflicts, which you can see in many parts, a direct impact on food security and reduction in global grain production. These are all causes of water stress. But is water crisis real? Groundwater is fast depleting. It's a fact, because 50% of urban and 55% of rural household water needs met through groundwater in India. 89% groundwater is used for irrigation, and 9% for household, and 2% by industry. About half of India starts facing drinking water crisis. Monsoon gets delayed. 21 cities, including Chennai, Bengaluru, are closing into day zero status. Day zero when you don't have water of your own. Between 2007 and 2017, the water table has reduced by 61%. This is the Central Groundwater Board. Alarmed with this kind of a depletion, Government of India has come out with Ministry of Jal Shakti, keeping all groundwater, your river systems, your reservoirs, everyone was put together, and situation is now improving gradually in India because of this combined effect of Jal Jeevan Mission, or various schemes, Atal Bhujal Yojana. So number of Yojana which have started, and because of that the situation is started improving in India. But what is happening if we look at in Asia? Tibet is known as water tower of Asia. Now this is 10 major Asian rivers, including Indus, Satluj, Brahmaputra, Irrawaddy, Salween, Yellow, Yangtze, and Mekong, originate in Tibet. Flow through countries like China, India, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Pakistan, Vietnam, Thailand, Burma, and Cambodia, and Laos. This river flows from 9 countries, Mekong River. And these rivers are the lifeline of around 2 billion people in South and Southeast Asia. Through the forceful occupation of Tibet, China having the upper riparian control. So the moment you have upper riparian control in a river system, you're always at advantage. You can obstruct, divert flow in case of conflict. And this is what is happening in case of Tibet water, which is coming. China is controlling 18% of world population, but only 6% of freshwater resources. North China is severely water stressed and wants to divert Tibetan water to North China. Made 4 dams on Brahmaputra River. Plans to build a super dam on downstream to the river near LAC. Brahmaputra is the lifeline for northeastern India and Bangladesh. And China controls the flow to Brahmaputra. And it can increase, it can decrease at will, and can divert to North China. So climate change and food security. So water risk is very, very essential until unless you manage your natural resources well. Otherwise, the moment you don't have water, you are totally gone. And this is what has happened. With one monsoon season fails in Southeast Asia, in Indian region, your entire economy goes, because it's still your 50% agricultural economy is your irrigation is based on the rain fed. And climate change and food security risk, major impact on agriculture and food production. By the way, food production contributes to around 40% of greenhouse gas emissions, the food, agriculture and the food systems. So with climate change happening, crop yields are likely to reduce by 25%. Global population is likely to increase to 7.7 billion to 8.5 billion by 2030, 9.7 billion by 2050. India's population, as it is increasing and will increase to 1.64 billion by 2050 from current 1.42 billion, and your food production is coming down. So food security is threatened due to climate change coupled with increasing demand of rising population. So a stress water situation is further complicating the problem, because unless you you have to find ways and methods to mitigate your climate change. Like if 89% of fresh water is being used for agriculture, that means the efficiency of agriculture is very poor in irrigation. So that has to improve. So the government is working on those all issues, but it will take time. Impact of water on energy security. Now we know how energy security can be threatened. Energy sector is most affected by water scarcity as well as floods. One is hydro power itself, that the moment your river flow comes down, your hydropower reduces. But apart from that, also even your thermal power needs no sufficient water to cool down the thermal power plants. I've done one study from 2017 to 2021, India lost 8.2 terawatt hours due to lack of water. Enough electricity to power 1.5 million Indian households for 5 years. Between 2013 and 16, 14 out of 20 major thermal power stations were shut down. Estimated loss of income is 1.4 billion US dollars. This is a case. Arai Dam surface area decreased 15% from 2018 to 2021. And this was providing water supply to Chandpur and the thermal power stations. So the moment water supply crisis happens, what happened? Like China also, the moment their river started drying up, they said, okay, let's close down the power plants first, because public, you'll have to supply water to the public first. So all your industrial activities become secondary once you have some kind of issue. So, and this is another global risk of flight. If a 10 to 15% of area goes underwater of a particular country, do you think where that population will go? They will migrate within the country, intra-country, inter-countries. And this rapid urbanization and rising sea levels are creating that problem. Thawing of permafrost, the poles hold twice more CO2 as compared to presently available in the atmosphere. So if permafrost melts, this CO2 will have unprecedented consequences. Crop yields likely to drop while demand for food will increase to double by 2050. A quarter of world population already feeling water scarcity. Increased migration, geopolitical confrontations, more potential points of contention as climate change reshapes the security and access to historic common resources. As per UN, water was a major factor in conflict in 45 countries in 2007. And even the Ukraine conflict was partly started with water. The Crimea, the Dnieper River, which was first, that dam was broken so that the water could be supplied to Crimea. So huge economic impact as already estimated could be 1 trillion or 10% of GDP by the end of century in case of climate action failure. So that is how climate action failure is the biggest threat the world faces today. But how you can do it? Climate change, adaptation and mitigation is the method by which, and the countries are taking, and what talk we are hearing, what all discussions we are having, whether it is G20, whether it is Quad, you will find that adaptations measures are very important, because even if climate change stops, the extreme weather events, those things will continue to remain for next 3 to 4 decades before you get back to normal. So increased adaptive capacity, building resilience to extreme weather events, flood protection, forest protection, infrastructure and building design change, green infrastructure, conservation of water and energy. These are adaptation measures, and enhance the the adaptive capacity of the poor and vulnerable. But mitigation measures are what? Reduction in greenhouse gas emissions is the first mitigation measures at source. Renewable energy targets of 500 gigawatt by 2030, net neutrality by 2070. These are all mitigation measures. Reduce dependency on fossil fuel energy, sustainable transportation, e-mobility, green infrastructure, conservation of water and energy, efficient technology. And that is how the main mitigation drivers for India today is the renewable energy, your EV transportation, and your green hydrogen and ethanol mixing. These are four main mitigation drivers for India, and India is working on them very, very aggressively. Actually, all efforts are on to achieve carbon net neutrality by 2070. So the world is on highway to climate hell with foot on the accelerator. This is what UN Secretary General said. Can we stop this unprecedented crisis to human history? Because this is unprecedented. Human history never had this kind of a crisis. So we all need to work together actually to mitigate climate change. All countries have to come together, and the global south, though they are not responsible for it, but climate change is a transboundary problem. It doesn't respect your borders, so it will impact everybody. So everyone has to, collectively fight this mess which is already there. Now, which country act to protect the climate change? Now, this is the climate gap report which has been released. When we look at this, the best performing country is, fifth best is India. So India is meeting, you can see it in green, and first Denmark, Sweden, Chile, Morocco. Now what you see, out of all G20 countries, no country is available in best performing climate change mitigation. More countries are announcing their net zero emissions. As you can see that many more countries have joined: India, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Turkey, etc. So gradually we will see that there is a definite trajectory of GHG emission is decreasing, and I think though it is not at a desired place, but I think we are on the right direction, and gradually as we go forward, we do not have second planet B. We do not have a choice, but we have to reduce our greenhouse gas inventory. One policy decision, and the policy decision can be the best drivers in this case, and that is what is happening in India. Thank you everybody for listening so peacefully. If you have any questions, I'll be very glad to answer. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity once again. Sama, all members of Sama, and the Professor Tyagi and Professor Sumesha Das.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Rasan Mishra, for the enlightening talk. Before we move forward, we would like to capture this moment. We kindly request all the participants to turn on their cameras for a group photo session. So after the photo session, we will start the Q&A session. So please switch on your camera.
Dr. Das, I am Kisira Abeshika from Sri Lanka.
Yes, sir. I know you very much.
Yeah.
I met when I was in Sri Lanka.
Yeah. Can I ask a very short question?
Yeah, sure, sir. Just we finish the photo session. Maybe take 1 or 2 minutes time. Then we will start the Q&A session. I will give you the first chance. Thank you, sir. Still many participants not switched on camera. Dr. Tyagi sir, could you please switch on your camera? Lakshmi ji, please. And everyone, D. Rajan, Afil Tamil, Rakhat, Raja Lingam, Pramod, Dr. Mizanur Rahman, please switch on your video. Yes, just a minute. One more. Dr. Polomi, you can also take a screenshot.
Yes, sir, I'm doing that.
Yes. Now I think it's all right now. Still Dibya Prakash and many on. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. You always switched on your video. Thank you, sir.
I think many people have not switched on the video yet.
Yes, sir. I'm requesting everyone, especially Tin Mar Thai from Myanmar, Dr. Mizanur Rahman from Bangladesh, Annie Kelal, Pramila, Musaid, Pramod, Dr. Ira Upadhyay, D. Rajan. If possible, please switch on your video. We are taking a screenshot. Please. One more, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. So now time for Q&A session. Thank you everyone for a wonderful photo session. So now we will proceed to the question answer session. Participants are encouraged to raise their question regarding the talk delivered by Dr. S.N. Mishra. Please feel free to use the chat or raise your hand and we will give you an opportunity to. As I promised to Dr. Kidisri Abhaya Singh sir to ask the first question. Sir, please feel free to ask your question.
Thank you, Dr.
Stick to
Das.
the-
Yeah, actually, we have to thank Dr. Mishra for the very nice presentation. My question is very short question. There was one thing which I couldn't understand: the green infrastructure. Actually, what do you mean by green infrastructure?
Yeah.
Could you kindly explain that?
Yeah, today, when we talk about green infrastructure, every infrastructure which you are creating, create an infrastructure which is green in the sense that it is the urban infrastructure where we create adequate green infrastructure which is supportive of its waste management, which is self-supportive of its entire water management within the premises which you are doing. So any infrastructure is green if it is self-sufficient, sustainable in terms of its water management, in terms of its waste management, and it is supported by the renewable energy.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Mishra. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your nice question, and thank you, our research person, for a nice reply. So I have seen many questions in the chat box. So if anyone wish to ask question direct to our research person, please feel free to raise your hand and unmute and ask the question. Or I can read question from the chat box. I think Polome, you have a question. So please feel free to ask question directly to sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the wonderful lecture. And I have one question about the emission of carbon that as China is one of the largest producer and also exporter of products, can the blame on emissions should only be on China, or will it be attributed to the users of these products worldwide?
Yeah, the very good question. See, when you see if you have seen UAE and these countries, they are very high. Their per capita is very high, whereas total emission is less, right? So when you do GHG inventory, you always look at how much you are exporting from them. That will be contributed towards yourself rather than for China. China is producing whatever it is producing through its own fossil fuels is one. But thereafter, whatever, if you have carbon emissions are of three types: scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 emissions. So scope 1 emission, you are responsible for your own, whatever you are doing at your home. Scope 2 emissions are the one which you are buying from somebody else, like I'm buying energy from you. So these are from scope 2 emissions for me. And scope 3 emissions are the one which from my company, I am selling everything outside. So they're all going as scope 3 emissions. So they are scope 3 emissions and they will be contributed to all countries, those who are buying those products, because emissions it's a life cycle of emissions. product life cycle. So whole product life cycle, whatever emissions are. So though China is a biggest contributor as of now, but if you look at per capita, even China is much below as compared to developed countries like US and all. US per capita is 14. China is still around 7-8 tons of per person. Because these are the countries which are developing, and they have throughout remained as a poor countries. But only last 30-40 years they have made development, and they want to provide something to their population, some good life, good style. So that's the issue actually. So that is how whenever there is a talk of greenhouse gas emissions, the whole global south starts looking at the developed world. They are the historical emitters, and even today their per capita emissions are very high because they don't want to compromise on their lifestyle. Does that answer your question, Polomi?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Polomi, for your nice question. And of course, thank you, sir. And I have seen some more questions in the chat box. So, Mr. Jubair, are you there? If you are not, I can ask question in favor of you. Sir, how can we differentiate between the natural changes of climate change from human activities? As the previous record also suggests us about the climate change and global warming, and there was no carbon dioxide emission. Sir, please.
Yeah. See, the natural climate change, what we have the evidences which are there, that till 1950, the carbon CO2 emissions remained almost stationary, close to 270 to 275 ppm. See, it's a very interesting thing that carbon dioxide is a villain today, right? But if in your atmosphere, if carbon dioxide is not there, 270 parts per million is a necessity of that kind of a carbon dioxide in the environment, because that is what keeping your surface livable. Otherwise, your earth atmospheric temperature, mean temperature, what we consider 15 degrees Celsius, should have been close to minus 50 degrees Celsius. So that natural cycle has always been there. So nature has a sink also, and nature emits also through various processes. And even today, nature is sinking close to around 35% of emissions. Even today, whatever we are emitting, say 40 gigatons of per year, so close to 16 to 17 gigaton is still absorbing your entire natural forest, your phytoplanktons, after oceans, they are the biggest absorber of the CO2 emission. So the increased emission is because of the human endeavors, because of the businesses which are carrying out. It is the human endeavor that whatever carbon has been sequestered over a period of time and but deep buried into the underground, it has been taken out and released into the environment back and being released. So that is how we say that fossil fuel is the first thing to be phased out completely in a gradual way. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have seen one more question from Myanmar. Kawai, are you there? If yes, I think she or he is here. If
Yes.
yeah, please, you ask question directly to sir.
He's he. I'm a he. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you for your knowledge sharing. I'm currently the PhD student from the meteorology. So I'm currently doing the research about the previous shed reduction of global CO2 during the COVID-19. According to the observation, there is real the shed reduction during previous 2 years. But after this 2 years, we facing the recorded extreme event during the 2022 and 23 winter and the summer. A previous winter in Europe, there is an extremely recorded cold wave. Now currently in China, extreme heat wave. So I think that it may be the related quiet with the sharp reduction CO2 to the climate extreme event recorded extreme event during after this 2 years. So how about your opinion? I would like to suggestion from you.
Thank you. The fact remains, that there was some no reduction in the GHG during COVID. No, that's because your all factory output, everything got totally closed down. But the climate change, the way it is, so every year, you said last 2 years, next 2 years will be even worse. And subsequently, there will be new normals, there will be new records every year now. That is how the climate change is being looked at. So we don't know what will happen in future. We only know that whatever has happened, it will break that record as we go forward.
Yes.
So that's the state, and that is how the all urgency to act on climate change. That whatever no new normal, the usual normal will no longer remain normal. There will be always a new normal now. You'll have to set those new normal. You have to learn to deal with new normals. It's an existential crisis, as I had said. We don't have planet B. We have to save this, and that is how urgency, and that urgency has to come, because it only comes when some event happens, then everybody talks about it, and thereafter again work as usual.
Yes, another question is about the digital pollution. And currently, the global scale, we have to target to zero emission, but we change to the all electric vehicle, electric every sector E. The electric is produced by the some countries still using the nuclear power plant. This also impact on CO2, but it is possible to get the eco-friendly resources for electricity in future, or is enough for our consumption. According to my previous review, the digital pollution, based on the electricity, this is a little impact to the CO2 emission. So maybe that we are developing IT, so everyone use that electric power for their daily life. So more consumption is increasing day by day and year by year. So if we cannot produce this electric electric buying the eco-friendly, in future we will more how should I say, the CO2 emission due to the nuclear power plant will be more and more. So it's a vice versa relation. So it is possible to get a eco-friendly production of this electricity in future. I mean, enough for one. Yes.
Yeah, that's precisely what you call eco-friendly, is the renewable energy, right?
Yes.
It is the renewable energy. First of all, the nuclear energy does not pollute. It's considered a clean energy, right? But nuclear energy has its own pitfalls. So nuclear energy is a clean energy. Now, what you're talking of, that's what the world is moving towards. Like, if you look at all developed worlds, they have phased out coal. They have not phased out gas and oil as of from their energy mix, but coal they have almost phased out, except France. Again, no, they have done their 2 thermal power because of Ukraine crisis. They have again refired their 2 thermal power plant last winter, because when public demands energy, you have to give them. You can't say them, no, I am going to net zero. So that's it. So the world is moving towards, and that is how the entire solar alliance, your wind energy, these are the energy which are so that's what, like in India, if you look at, we are progressing very fast on renewable energy. The only problem with renewable energy is that renewable energy will not be able to provide the grid stability as of now, because we don't have good storage facilities for that. Okay. India is work in progress, and very soon we will have good this thing. And so what you are right, that any electric transport, if it's still being your electricity battery is being charged with the normal energy, with a non-clean energy, then it is no good actually. But still, it reduces your CO2 emission. That same transport vehicle reduces your emission by close to 70-75%, even if you use the normal energy. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kao, for your very interactive questions and interaction with our to the resource persons. Still, we have 1 or 2 questions. I think we have a little more time, so we can take care of those also. One is from Wing Commander Bhimani. I think he is still here. If you wish, you can directly ask the question. WC R.A. Bhimani.
Dr.
Or
Mishra,
I can
good
ask.
evening.
Yeah, please. Yeah, please. Yeah.
My question is that there is a contrarian view that electric mobility vehicles and systems, they actually consume much more of natural resources, particularly water, in production of, let's say, batteries, semiconductors, and so on and so forth. So are we really avoiding the problem in, say, thinking that electric vehicles will solve a large percentage of the climate change problem?
You see, the concept is right. That's true that your semiconductor is again a very water intensive industry that uses more your but at the same time, you look at the countries which are producing leaders in semiconductors, say Taiwan. Taiwan is a water positive country with being the leading semiconductor industry. So it is water is a resource, how you manage it, how you recycle it, how you reuse it. So water is basically a problem of mismanagement rather than is a scarcity, that we have sufficient water provided we manage it well. And all industries know, the new industries, whether your data industry, your semiconductor, they are hugely water intensive. But water can be managed through better methodology. And the moment the policy comes in that way, that transition policy and the policy interventions come in that way, either you reuse, recycle your water, or you don't use it. I think things will fall in line gradually, and a lot of work is happening in India in that sense also.
Thank you.
But the fact remains that the gasoline-based EV transportation is a big polluter, and especially in the air pollution. It may not be CO2 directly emission, but air pollution as such, it is the big emitter. And you see the case in Delhi, with one policy intervention, 55 lakhs have been taken out. And that has got a lot of positive impact on the Delhi pollution.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we are almost end of the questions. Kalpana Niyupane, if you wish, please ask question directly to sir.
I would suggest that, Dr. Mohan, I would suggest that though you are asking question in person live, they can switch on the video, at least for
Exactly,
there can be a face-to-face interaction. Okay.
Right, sir. So, Kalpana ji, yes, please. Please switch on your video and ask your question, please. Kalpana Niyupane. We can't hear you. We can see you,
Yeah, you
but we
can
can't
unmute.
hear you.
Mute your mic, yeah.
Am I audible?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
now perfect. Now all right.
Thank you, Samar family, for providing this opportunity to me. My question is how can reduce heat wave in the world?
Can you please repeat your question?
How can reduce heat wave in the world? What are the
Sir,
heat waves?
yeah, she wished to know regarding the climate change issues. Is it possible to reduce heat wave?
No, heat wave you cannot reduce, but you can mitigate impacts of heat waves. Okay, so that is where the adaptation in climate change is the another key word. No, what we had talked about, that you have to adapt to through normal SOPs, because heat wave, who gets impacted with heat wave? Either the agriculture or the workers which are working in open, or people who do not have access to energy. Okay, so these are the vulnerable people. So what can you do? You can create adaptive capacity of these people by making of various SOPs, by creating some kind of places where people avoiding working in the open. Those kind of heat wave will happen. The natural process, you cannot stop cyclonic storm from forming. You cannot stop heat wave from forming. It's a regional scale systems which are impacting. So none of the extreme weather events you can avoid. You can mitigate their impact by increasing your adaptive capacity. That is what your infrastructure, your climate proofing, whatever you can do. So to reduce heat wave, you have to reduce GHG inventory emissions. Sorry, GHG emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, you'll have to reduce, and that will take time. That is not an easy job. It is happening, work in progress, but the trajectory which we would have liked and desired, it is not happening at that pace. Although it is happening, the trajectory is lowering gradually. There's 1% less reduction this year. Okay. This answers.
How can identify heat wave?
Yeah, how you can identify? You're from which part of the world?
He is a student in Tribhuvan University, Kathmandu, Nepal. Right?
Okay, Kathmandu. So the Kathmandu Meteorological Department must have explained what a heat wave is considered when the temperature rises certain threshold limits over a hill station or over a plain station. Okay, in India, for a plain station, it is 4.5 degrees Celsius more than the normal and exceeding 40 degrees Celsius temperature. So that's the first criteria of a normal heat wave. Then there is a criteria for severe heat wave. And for a coastal area, it's a different. For a hill station, it's a different. So I think you're a student of meteorology. You must have read this in your.
He is a student of physics, right, Kalpana? Are you a student of physics or meteorology?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Physics,
okay.
right?
Sorry.
Yes, sir.
My apologies. Yeah. But the criteria have been, it's a very interesting meteorology. You must read those. Okay,
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Kalpana, for your nice and intelligent questions. I have seen only one question from Ira Upadhyay. Dr. Ira Upadhyay, please feel free to ask your question and switch on your video, please. Yes.
Namaskar, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much for your
Namaskar.
insightful lecture. So my question is, when you talk about the adaptation, there is contradictory vulnerability. So just you answered the question in this, answered this question just now.
Okay.
According to vulnerability and adaptation. But my question is, what are the areas, different areas in which we face the vulnerability? How can we cope up with the adaptation? And secondly, can rural transformation may help in this adaptation?
That will only help, actually, if you ask me, because these are the people, rural people are the most vulnerable people. The whole, actually entire South Asia as a whole, if you look, more than 80-85% people are rural people. And the rural people are the one who are working. They are the poor people, the agriculture worker or any worker which is going outside in the fields, those who are working, plus urban workers also. But majority of them are in the rural areas. So though adaptive capacity has to be increased, and until unless we localize climate change to the local needs of that particular place, the things will not improve. So we have to localize climate change action at those places which are vulnerable through various medium, which there are a number of impactful projects and plans which are in place, and they're working just to increase the enhanced capacity through early warning, through SOPs, through economic interventions, whatever you call it. But you're right. Vulnerable are the ones. Vulnerable are those people only, mostly, and we need action there itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ira Upadhyay. So, Dheeraj Padananga mentioned that Hydrogen Meteorology Department of Nepal and Small Earth Nepal have recently developed criteria for heat wave. And also there is a seminar related to the heat wave in the Sama YouTube. And Kriti Abhay Singh sir also asked for the record of the today's webinar. Sir, it is available in our Sama YouTube itself. So thank you all. If there is no more questions, I would like to thank you everyone for a very interactive Q&A session. Now let us move toward the concluding phase of this webinar. Now we have the privilege to hearing from the esteemed panelists who will provide their concluding remarks.
I just want to say either the kind of questions which I have seen, either I have not been able to convey correctly during my lecture, or people have understood no, well. That's the two things which are either way. It is okay for me because I have really enjoyed the question answer session as well. Very nice, and I would prefer even more questions now.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
So if there are more question in future, we will convey those questions directly to your email. Right, sir?
Yeah. Directly, you can mail to me. You can connect me on LinkedIn.
Right, sir. Yeah, I
Okay.
have seen you are very active in LinkedIn.
So you can connect on that also for any questions anytime, anywhere.
Right, sir. So thank you. So our panel is Professor Dr. Tohida Rashid, Dr. Dhiraj Pradhananga, and Mr. Sunil Karyavasnam. So I have seen Dhiraj Pradhananga is available. Karyavasnam sir and Tohida madam maybe not available. Oh, Karyavasnam sir is also available. But sir, Dr. Dar sir, Tohida madam maybe not joined, right?
She said she will try to join, although she is busy at this time. But probably it
Right,
seems
sir.
that she has not been able to join. So we can move on and ask
Okay,
the
sir.
next.
Yeah. So now I would like to request Dr. Dhiraj Pradhananga from Tribhuvan University, Nepal, and he is also the president of the Small Earth Nepal. So now floor is open for Dr. Dhiraj Pradhananga. So please unmute and we'd like to listen your concluding remarks based on today's lecture, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohan Kumar Das and the whole SAMA team for this opportunity to participate and to share some of my thoughts. And I congratulate and thank you, Dr. Mishra, for his comprehensive presentation. In fact, this is a very, very comprehensive. He included all the aspects of climate change, starting from the greenhouse gas emissions, its impacts, adaptations, and some policy level discussions as well with the present, with the data and along with some case studies. I'm truly impressed. So during his presentation, in fact, Dr. Mishra, you have covered so many topics and I picked up only one part and I've tried to prepare a couple of slides based on that and I would like to share here and take this opportunity to focus on climate change and water particularly. And if you allow me, I'd like to share my screen.
Oh,
I hope
nice.
it's visible.
Yes, it is visible.
Yes. So, you also mentioned about change in precipitation pattern as a part of climate change impact and change on glaciers and hydroclimatic disasters. So what I did is I made a couple of slides to share with you and focus on change in precipitation phase. So let me start with some of the activities, some of the publications that we were working on climate change and water. So we started working with several basins in Nepal, and we tried to look upon climate data analysis. And along with that, we also visited several places in Nepal and communicated with them. And we found that they have observed the impacts of climate change. And along with that, we are also working with early career professionals. And recently, last month, we had several youth and especially graduate students and undergraduate students, and we discussed about creeping environmental problems with them and during the climate workshops. And we thought that there could be some of the topics that we could explore for the climate change. And when looking at Dr. Mishra's presentation, the present highlight, especially in the mountains, the meteorological changes are focused on he clearly presented on the climate change, which threatens flood, water, and energy security, along with some of the variations in precipitation that is related with extreme climate. And of course, he also mentioned about retreat of glaciers and increase in glacier lake outburst flood. But this, the short period that I have given, I would like to utilize that. There is one additional research that we could focus on. In fact, it is being not significantly. So I would like to highlight that there is a change in precipitation phase in mountains, especially in cold regions. And that is nowadays more rain instead of more and less snow is happening. So it is impacting, in fact, in agriculture, not only in food security, but also in energy and increasing disasters. And especially, it used to work as a blanket for glaciers and snow and fern. But now, since there is a less snow, more rain, the glacier is melting faster than in the past, and it is causing more flash floods and landslide, as well as increasing the short-term droughts. So based on that, but I would like to show you one of the studies that we did in 2019, looking at the snow cover areas in Nepal. And if we look at 2 timestamps, 2019 and 1990 and 2018, we see that the snow cover areas have reduced significantly. So this was our starting, how we look from the remote sensing or satellite images. And so this could be one of the, severely or very important part of change that we observe in the mountains and in the Himalayas, that how the climate change impacted the snow cover, and especially how it is impacting the agriculture. Winter crops are, being felled. And when we looked at the meteorological stations or the distribution, then we clearly see that, if you can see my mouse hovering, the high mountain areas are not, they do not have observation. So that is a very important part to notice, that whatever we are making, projections or analysis, they are based on all the stations. They are mainly focused in the lower elevations, but we do not have much observation in the higher elevations. So this is one scenario. That's why we thought that, because I see that several participants for today are students, graduate students, undergraduate students, so they may be interested to learn more about the climate change, and especially in the high mountains. So I thought that, there are some potentials for collaboration, for research, and I definitely want to focus that, there are changes in precipitation, but the changes in precipitation phase could be very important, and this could be one of the research that we need to focus in the Asian region. And with that, I'd like to share one collaboration opportunity that we are having one conference in November 9 and 10 in 2023. That's conference is on an international conference on mountain hydrology and cryosphere, and I'm looking for collaboration, regional collaboration, along with Shama and all the participants who represented their respective institutions, and work and present some papers on mountain meteorology if they are interested, and also to especially propose one, maybe one special session during the conference as a mountain meteorology or studies or observation is mountain meteorology. So with this brief sharing, once again, I'd like to thank you, Dr. Mishra, for his comprehensive presentation on climate change and its impacts, adaptation, and all the parts that he has covered. And I found it very comprehensive. In fact, this is maybe the first time that I could hear within 1 hour all the aspects of climate change. And thank you once again to Sama for opportunity to share some of my thoughts and focusing on climate change and water. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Dhiraj Pradhananga, for your insightful concluding remarks and with the collaboration aspects. It's really praiseworthy. Thank you. Now, I would like to request Mr. Sunil Karyavasam, sir, who is the former Director General of Sri Lanka Meteorological Department and also the advisory panel member of South Asian Meteorological Association, SAMA. Sir, floor is open for you. Kindly unmute. Sir, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Mishra, for your comprehensive presentation on this regard, climate change, and a lot of things you discussed and you showed a lot of information there. And actually, I am very much thankful for your presentation. One thing I just want to say, as far as the climate change is concerned, there are 3 aspects. One is adaptation, and the mitigation, and the other part is loss and damage. So L&D, loss and damage part, is the most one of the important part to reduce loss and damage. So you have to have the significant, the actions for the mitigation adaptation. So that is the, I think, main idea for the some days for everything. For the to have the capacity of decreasing loss and damage, you have to have the very good planning as well as the economic.
True.
So, for instance, if the economy is poor, then you may not be able to properly adapt or mitigate to the climate change. So, in fact, climate change is, I mean, the stress for the people, I mean, the community. So, if you do not handle this thing, I mean, giving some potential for that, and maybe the economy as well as the other aspects. So you may have, the stress on the society as well as the unrest on them. So it might create, again, if you consider, I mean, you are talking about the national security, so it might even create some calamity in the population among the, I mean, in the countries. So that's also one of the thing I have to mention. So as far as the Sri Lanka is concerned, we don't have glaciers and so on as a tropical country, but we have, I think, ample amount of water which has not been properly managed due to certain I mean, the actions, especially the land use and water management. So you don't believe that even the dry area of Sri Lanka are getting more than 900 millimeters of rainfall during the 1 year. Annual rainfall is more than just 900 millimeters for the driest areas. But that implies, the Sri Lanka should not have the water problem if we properly manage not only just the water, but also the whole I mean the planning aspects of the country for the development processes. So with that, I conclude and I thank for the and for giving this opportunity to speak or to speak some words to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your very insightful and important concluding remarks related to today's topic. So thank you, Dr. Dheeraj Padananga, as well as Sir Sunil Karyabasanam for your valuable concluding remarks. Now we would like to express our gratitude to everyone who has made this webinar possible. Now it is time for vote of thanks. Now I'd like to request Madan Sigdal from Tribhuvan University, Kathmandu, Nepal, to deliver vote of thanks. Please.
Thank you for this opportunity. It was very important presentation from our guest. First of all, I'd like to thank Professor S.N. Mishra from TERI, India, for a very important and nice presentation. And similarly, I'd like to thank the panel, Dr. Dheeraj Padananga from Tribhuvan University, and Dr. Sunil Karyasam from Sri Lanka for the important remarks. Similarly, I'd like to thank all the life members who have joined today and all the student members who have joined for this presentation. And similarly, thanks goes to Professor Tyagi, President of SAMA, Professor Das, Secretary of SAMA, for managing this program. And finally, I'd like to thank Dr. Lakshmi Kumar and Dr. Mohan for their contribution to organize this program. So thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Madan Sigdal. We would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to Dr. Madan Sigdal. He is also the executive coordination team member of SAMA, and he is the professor of Tribhuvan University, Nepal, for his tremendous support and contribution to this webinar. We also thank all the participants for their active engagement. With that, we come to end of today's webinar on climate change. Sir.
We should also thank Dr. Fatima for making this Zoom platform available to SAMA, to Dhaka University.
Yes,
because she has been very generous and kind to make the Zoom platform of the university available to all the activities of SAMA. So let's thank Dr. Fatima Akhtar also for that.
Sure, sir. Actually, she is very busy, but she engaged with this activity long ago, and still she is giving her tremendous support to the Sama continuously. And sir, with this, I think we are almost end of today's webinar. Thank you to all the all of your participations, and have a wonderful day ahead. If you allow, we can stop the live on YouTube. And I think Dr. Tyagi sir is still with us. If Sir wish, sir can say a few words for the participants and our research person, please.
Yeah, thank
Thank you,
you,
sir.
Mohan. Yeah, thank you, Mohan, for moderating this important webinar. We had a wonderful talk and good question answer session, and the concluding remarks by two eminent panelists. So it had been very, very successful webinar. I am sure it will be, I think student members have immensely benefited, and it also highlighted a big picture of climate change impact and regional impact. Each country will have to work on the climate action plans depending on the vulnerabilities and the effect of climate change in their respective countries. So that is what the Sama would like to promote. Thank you so much to everyone for contributing to the success of this particular webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And
Once
of course, thank you to Dr. Das sir. He continuously giving his leadership to make all the programs successful. Thank you, sir.
Yes, biggest thank you to Professor Das too.
Right,
He's
sir.
the
In
one
fact,
who's
Dr. Misra, I mean, your topic, really caught my eyes. When I read that you spoke on the climate change as a national security threat. So I was just wondering, being a kind of a defense officer, Air Force officer, I was just wondering whether we talk on the application of climate change on the on warfare, modern warfare kind of things, like all those sandstorms, that occurred in Saudi Arabia during the war. So I was just thinking that whether you are going to talk on the modern warfare based on the climate change issues kind of things. So it was really interesting. But later on, I realized that actually what you meant was the security threat because of the food, water, and energy, which is really very, very challenging issues. So it was quite interesting topic that way. But I always feel that climate change is taking place, of course, that we all realize, and we also know what are the ways to reduce or kind of mitigate the impacts of climate change. But we don't do many things, even if we know how to do it. Like, for example, everybody talks about we should get up in the morning before sunrise. How many of us really get up before sunrise? It's like that, as simple as that. So, despite knowing the fact that there are ways or methods to reduce the impact of climate change, but we don't do that. But I feel that being a meteorologist and also especially being a modeler, NWP person right from the beginning in my career, I always feel that these things will keep on happening, right? But the most important challenge is how to be able to predict or develop the early warning system so that we can warn the people well in advance so that they can take the appropriate measures. And that's most challenging thing to have the appropriate warning system. And for that, all of us know that, for NWP, observations are the key factors because they control the final solutions of the model. So it is also a kind of thing to really explore that if there is anything happening in the atmosphere, that should be shown up in the measurements by the instruments, the observations. So observations should be able to sense in advance the upcoming things in the next 2-3 days or next 7 days or 10 days. And despite that, still we know that many things are happening. Like 2-3 days ago, such a severe flood occurred in Himachal Pradesh in India. So much of rainfall occurred, and there were, although like a umbrella warning from the Met Department is always there, and that's good in that sense. But yet, lives are lost. yet the properties are damaged. So those things are the challenging things, that how we can really predict these things well in advance, like we are able to do for the tropical cyclones. Like now, a decade, 2 decades ago, there were lakhs of people. I mean, at least tens of thousands of people who used to die in the tropical cyclones. But now that has been reduced to only a few because of our improvement in the technology of the observation as well as the modeling. So whether we can do similar things also for the kind of disasters, like cloud burst or extreme rainfall, and above that, whether we can take the appropriate measures, whether we can convey this to the public, convey to the administrators well in advance, so that they are able to take appropriate measures. So I feel that those things are really challenging things. Besides, of course, the climate change issue that we all know that is happening, and that will keep happening also. I mean, for many decades to come, that we all know. Also, we know that as a modeler, I know that there are limitations in the model. Projections are mostly based upon the model. Next 50 years or next 100 years, the kind of things projections are there from the model. And what are the limitations of the model? That also we know. We also know that if the models are not able to predict more accurately about 7 days from now, how can we think about the accuracy 50 years from now or 100 years from now? So those things are there, but yet, nevertheless, I think we are doing our best for that. And definitely, I would like to thank Dr. Misra for a very interesting and very comprehensive talk on the climate change issues, and especially the national security threat because of the climate change. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Das. This unconventional security threat, I said, no, national unconventional. Okay. The national conventional security threat continues to remain as it is. But they are further, but this is a bigger challenge, actually.
Yes.
This is a bigger challenge. And what we had seen with one Ukraine crisis, we had seen the kind of inflation which has gone, the kind of supply lines, the crisis, food crisis which has emerged in the world. So these are the problems which will appear because of climate change also, in some form or the other. Thank you very much once again for giving me this opportunity, and I really enjoyed it, delivering it, and with the question answer session. And once again, thank you, all of you.
Sir, for the excellent talk.
Thank you, sir.
This is Commodore MK Singh.
Oh, sir, how are you?
Good, sir, good.
Okay. I can see Gauripati sir also very.
Now you can see my face. I switched on the video.
Okay. SGS weather,
Stop recording, right? Stop recording at least.
Thank you.